The Last Cry in the Silent Palace. In the deepest heart of the Andralis Empire, where stars shimmered like cold diamonds across the night void, the royal palace lay frozen in sorrow. The marble halls, usually filled with music and pride, were now silent, and every servant moved like a ghost. They did not dare take loud breaths, for grief itself felt sacred here. The Alien Empress, Valeria of the Crimson Crown, sat on the edge of a giant crystal bed, her trembling hands holding a tiny limp body, the body of her only child, Princess Elira. Her wings, usually bright like dawn fire, now hung dull and heavy. Her silver eyes, strong enough to command armies, were red from tears she never allowed anyone to see. But today, even empresses were not steel. Today, she was a mother first, a broken mother. The healers had tried everything their galaxy-shaping knowledge could do. They used plasma cells, regeneration pods, even royal blood essence. But nothing woke the child. No breath, no heartbeat, just stillness. "This fate belongs to no mother," whispered the high priest, lowering his head. Valeria did not scream. She did not fall. She only whispered, voice shaking like thin glass, "Princess of Stars, why did you leave me so soon?" Her generals bowed low, unable to meet her eyes. Across the empire, battles paused. Soldiers fell to one knee. Cities dimmed their lights in mourning. The death of an heir meant the universe shook. But for Valeria, it wasn't an heir that died. It was her baby. Then, the palace doors shook, trembled. Guards froze. A deep voice called, "A ship approaches at impossible speed. Unknown origin." Every warrior gripped weapons, but a whisper ran through them. Humans, Deathworlders, the unpredictable species, the ones even war gods hesitated to provoke. "No human has ever stepped inside my palace," Valeria said quietly, wiping her tears. Her general replied, "Then we shall end the first who tries." But before they could react, the sky cracked open in a bright flash. A human rescue craft descended, fire and light trailing behind like a burning comet. It didn't land in the military bay. No. It crashed straight into the courtyard of the royal palace, shattering carbon steel gates. Soldiers raised plasma spears, ready to kill. The ship door hissed, smoke curled, and out stepped just one man, a simple uniform, scuffed boots, mud on his sleeves, and in his arms, a glowing medical pod. He held it close like it was the universe's last treasure. His voice shook with urgency as he approached the royal guards. Where is the Empress's child?" Blasters pointed at his heart. "Speak again, human," a guard growled, "and your bones will melt." He didn't blink. He didn't step back. He whispered instead, like someone who saw grief and didn't fear power, "I came because a mother should not bury her child if there is still one last light left." The guards hesitated. Empress Valeria stood, eyes hollow with pain, and looked down from the throne stairs. "Human," she said, voice sharp like cold iron, "you stand on sacred ground without permission." He bowed, not as a subject but as one soul to another. "I am Dr. Ethan Hale, trauma surgeon. I detected the biosignal collapse of the princess across subspace." "You tracked my child's death signal across galaxies?" Valeria narrowed her eyes. "No," he said softly. "I tracked a heartbeat that almost died. But it didn't." Her chest froze. For one heartbeat, her world stopped. "What do you mean?" Ethan stepped forward, opening the glowing pod. Tiny sparks of golden nanomist floated. Inside was a swirling medical field with strange human technology mixed with alien chemicals. "Your daughter's life. It is not gone. It is trapped." Her brain signal flickered before death. "Humans, we developed a stabilization tech for children born weak. I can restart her neural lattice. I can give her heart another chance." The entire hall gasped. Every healer who had failed stared in disbelief. Valeria's voice cracked, not with rage but with fragile hope that scared her more than grief ever did. "Why would you help me? Why risk your life entering the heart of my throne uninvited?" Ethan looked at the small still child on the crystal bed. His jaw tightened. "Because once," he said, breath trembling, "I held my daughter like that, and I could not save her. I promised no mother would feel that same pain if I could stop it." Silence. The type of silence galaxies hold before destiny shifts. Valeria's wings slowly unfolded. Power vibrated through the hall. "If you fail," she whispered, voice deadly and desperate, "I will erase your species from the stars." Ethan nodded. "And if I succeed—" She couldn't speak. Her voice broke. "Then, you will have saved my universe." He gently laid the medical pod beside the child. Blue light rose. Machines hummed. The air vibrated. Everyone held their breath. Then, a faint heartbeat, soft, fragile, but real. Valeria's knees nearly gave way. A tear fell on her daughter's tiny hand, and the mighty alien empire shivered, because a single human heartbeat had just challenged fate. A human touch against an empire's doubt. As the quiet heartbeat of the princess pulsed softly in the air, like the first weak knock of spring at the door of winter, the room did not erupt in celebration. No cheers rose, no relief washed across the faces of the palace healers. Instead, tension grew thicker, like invisible chains pulling tighter around every throat present. Because hope was dangerous. Hope could crush harder than grief. Empress Valeria stood frozen, her fingers trembling as they hovered above her child, afraid to touch, terrified that even the smallest movement might break this fragile miracle before it became real. Her breath was shallow, the wings on her back quivering like they were holding the weight of a dying star. Dr. Ethan didn't look victorious. His expression was not one of triumph, only focus, deep and unwavering, as if every cell in his body was locked into the task before him. Sweat rolled down his temples as his hands adjusted the stabilizer cuffs around the princess's tiny wrists, and glowing nanothreads slithered into her veins like threads of living light. He whispered to her softly, voice low but firm, "Come on, little fighter, stay with me, stay awake in the world that needs you." His voice was not commanding like a warrior's or proud like a scientist's. It was gentle, like a father talking to a child who once breathed in his arms and then slipped away. The alien healers watched in stiff silence, their pride clashing with curiosity, their disbelief fighting the undeniable rhythm echoing through the chamber. One finally spoke, unable to hold his tongue. "Your primitive species cannot comprehend the density of royal neural structure. If you disturb her energy alignment further, you will cause irreversible collapse." Ethan didn't look up. His hands continued moving with calm precision. "If your methods worked," he murmured softly, "she wouldn't be lying here between life and death." The healer recoiled as if struck. Even Valeria's wings snapped slightly at that quiet truth. Humans were strange, Valeria thought silently. They did not bow the way most species did. They spoke with honesty, even when it shook castles. A sudden beep spiked from the machine, sharp enough to slice air. The small heartbeat spiked and then dipped, flickered, stuttered, a candle fighting a storm. Valeria's breath shattered. Every guard lifted a weapon a fraction. Her voice came out like the growl of a wounded goddess. "If she goes silent again—" Ethan cut her off gently, softly, but firmly. "She won't. She is fighting." His fingers flew across the portable console, rerouting power, adjusting nanite flow. "Humans do not surrender," he whispered like a vow. "Not when a child is crying for life, even if the cry is too soft to hear." The princess's chest rose slightly, barely noticeable but enough to make one of the royal maids drop to her knees in shock. A shimmering breath, small but real, moved through her tiny lips. The Empress let out a sound, not a sob, not a command, but something raw and ancient, something only a mother carries inside her soul. Tears fell freely, landing on the glass edge of the pod, and the glowing nanolight responded with a sudden burst, as if even technology bowed to her grief and love. Ethan quietly wiped his own eyes with his sleeve, pretending it was sweat. But while one universe stirred back to life, another threat was silently forming. Above the palace, across massive star networks, Imperial defense channels screamed to life. The intrusion of a human ship triggered planetary alarm relays. Fleets mobilized. Battleships turned in space like metal beasts waking from hibernation. Cannons charging. War pilots preparing to launch. Humans were rare visitors, and an unauthorized arrival inside the Empress's palace was grounds for immediate annihilation. Generals whispered urgently around Valeria, voices sharp with duty and fear. "My Empress, we cannot ignore protocol. A strike fleet is requesting permission to remove the human threat. If we hesitate, this could be seen as weakness." For a long moment she didn't answer. Her eyes remained fixed on her child's face, on that tender flicker of a fight returning. Then she lifted her gaze slowly, and the universe seemed to hold its breath because her expression had changed. She was no longer a mother crushed by grief. She was an empress again, steel and storm forged into one living figure. "Tell the fleet," she said calmly, "the human is under my protection. Anyone who fires upon him fires upon me." The generals exchanged horrified glances. In their world, protection was sacred, irreversible. Ethan did not hear any of this, but his fate had just been tied to a crown that ruled galaxies. Instead of relief, Valeria's voice carried something dangerous when she spoke again. Lower this time, almost trembling with emotion she hated showing. "Human. What you do not do as a doctor alone. You now carry the hopes of an empire." Ethan paused only for a moment, then nodded, gently brushing a hair from the princess's forehead like she were his own. "I carry the promise I made long ago," he replied, voice heavy with memories that hurt to breathe. "I couldn't save my child, but I will not fail another." In that moment, something shifted between them. Not friendship, not trust, but something deeper and more dangerous, a shared wound stretched across two species and one tiny heartbeat. And as the princess's pulse steadied just a little, more, as fragile as morning light on snow, a shadow stirred beyond the palace walls, a whisper moving through space like a cold wind. If a human can return life to a royal heir, then humans are more dangerous than any weapon the stars have seen. The galaxy had just learned hope could be a threat, and this miracle might ignite more than love. It could start a war. The human who would not kneel hours passed like centuries inside the palace, each moment stretched thin by fear, hope, and the fragile heartbeat floating in the air. Dr. Ethan did not rest, did not blink more than necessary, his hands moving with the patience of someone who had seen death before and refused to let it win this time. His tools hummed with soft lights, his breath steady, and every few minutes he softly murmured reassuring words to the tiny princess, as though his voice alone could guide her soul back to her body. The alien attendants watched the scene in pure disbelief. To them, humans were whispered myths. Unpredictable, wild, capable of loyalty so fierce and sudden violence so intense that no one truly understood their spirit. Yet here was one. Not with weapons or power, but with gentle hands and burning determination, refusing to bend before destiny. But beyond this fragile miracle, the palace was changing. Word of the Empress's command spread like fire through the royal courts. Many bowed in awe that she would defend a human. Others trembled with confusion and fear, uncertain if her choice was wisdom or madness. And some, hidden in shadows, filled their hearts with anger. In the highest balcony of the palace dome, an elite commander named Serath watched the healing chamber with cold, calculating eyes. His armor gleamed with the Empress's sigil, yet resentment pulsed beneath it like poison. A human walks into our sacred heart, and the galaxy bends for him. Serath clenched his fists, jaw tight. If this alien creature succeeds, he will not just save a child. He will earn the Empress's favor, and no outsider deserves to stand so near to her throne. Inside the room, unaware of enemies forming, Ethan adjusted the protective field again when the princess's pulse suddenly dipped. A sharp alarm cut through the air. The chamber trembled with panic. Her neural lattice is fluctuating. 1. Healer gasped. Her body rejects your foreign nanites. Ethan shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow, voice calm but firm. No, her body is fighting trauma. She is not rejecting anything. She is trying to come back. His tone was soft like a lullaby, but his conviction was steel. She needs a steady voice, not fear. And then, without ceremony, he took the tiny alien hand into his palm and whispered, "Little one, I know it's dark, I know it's cold, but there is a world waiting for you, and a mother who has not taken a real breath since you closed your eyes." Valeria stood close now, far closer than an empress ever stood to an outsider. Her wings folded tightly, her chest rising and falling as old, aching hope pushed against walls built of grief and power. She studied this human, this small mortal from a dangerous world, and for the first time she wondered if strength did not always come from armies and gods, but from the fragile courage of a single soul who refuses to let go. "You carry pain in your voice," she said quietly, not as a ruler, but as a mother who recognized the wounds of another. Ethan did not look at her. His eyes remained on the child. "Pain reminds us we once loved deeply," he replied, voice hollow yet strong. "And love, it makes us fight." Her wings trembled at his words, and a strange warmth flickered in. Her chest, not romantic, not yet trust, but a powerful respect born from shared scars. Suddenly, the palace doors opened with a metallic echo, and Serath marched inside, flanked by soldiers in black armor. Their presence shattered the fragile calm like broken glass. "Enough!" Serath's voice thundered. "This experiment must end. The human's presence threatens our security. Let the child pass in dignity, and we shall honor her." Valeria's eyes flashed with lethal fire, but before she could speak, Ethan finally lifted his head, his glare sharp as a blade. "I don't walk away from a dying child," he said simply, not shouting, not trembling, "not ever." The soldiers stiffened. Who talked like this to an alien empress's commander? Serath sneered. "You forget where you stand, human. We could erase you with a breath." Ethan slowly rose, his full height insignificant compared to the towering armored warriors, yet somehow his presence filled the room. "Then breathe," he whispered, "but I will still be here until she lives." His voice had no fear, only fire. A hush fell. The healers looked between them. Even Valeria's breath paused. A mortal man staring down elite royal guards, not with arrogance but with sacred purpose. Serath moved a hand to draw his weapon, and the Empress's voice split the air like thunder. "Stand down!" Her wings flared in furious brilliance. "No blade rises in this chamber while my child breathes." The soldiers froze. Serath bowed stiffly, but rage stormed behind his eyes. He left, silent but seething, and the doors sealed again. Yet he would not forget this humiliation. In his mind, a plan already formed. This human, this fragile being who dared defy an empire, would not leave alive. Ethan returned to the child, unaware of the knives now pointed at his future. The princess's heartbeat steadied once again, fragile but stronger than before. A whisper of a breath touched the air. Valeria let out a trembling exhale, her voice breaking like starlight through storm clouds. "Human. If she lives, I owe you a debt no crown has ever owed." Ethan didn't answer immediately. His eyes watched the gentle rise of the tiny chest. "You owe me nothing," he said softly. "Just don't forget this moment. Empires fall. Life is what matters." Valeria looked at him then, truly, saw him, a man who had lost everything yet still offered the universe hope. It frightened her, it humbled her, and somewhere deep it comforted her. Outside the palace walls, fleets waited, armies whispered, assassins sharpened blades in silence, because if one human could save the daughter of an empress, then humanity, was no longer a rumor to fear. They were a force to reckon with, a species that might one day reshape fate itself. And as the little heartbeat grew steadier, stronger, the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, watching. For this was no simple rescue. This was the first spark of a destiny neither empire nor human had yet imagined. The breath that changed. An Empire night in the Andralis Palace was unlike night anywhere else in the galaxy. The moonless sky was threaded with violet auroras. Starlight rippled across crystal towers, and the palace's great wings of stone and energy shimmered as though the building itself breathed with life. Yet, despite the beauty, a heavy stillness clung to the corridors, the kind that came not from peace but from anticipation, as if the entire empire held its breath alongside its empress. Inside the royal healing chamber, the air hummed softly with machines, and Ethan remained by the tiny princess's side, eyes shadowed with fatigue, yet burning with stubborn fire. He had not eaten, not slept, not even looked away for more than a heartbeat. To him, the world outside that cradle of medical light meant nothing. Only this fragile life mattered. Princess Elira's eyelids quivered faintly, a tiny tremor like the flutter of a butterfly against a window pane. Her breath grew a shade stronger, a little more stable, and the faintest warmth returned to her cold fingers. Ethan exhaled slowly. Not victory, not relief, but a careful surrender of tension that he had carried through every tense second. He whispered again, voice soft and human and painfully sincere, "You're doing it. Keep going, little warrior." His thumb brushed the child's hand, not commanding, not expecting, simply offering presence. For a species known as unpredictable, wild, even terrifying, there was a tenderness in him that unsettled even the palace healers, who had seen countless worlds rise and fall yet never seen such devotion woven with such quiet grief. Empress Valeria stood near the crystal pillars, her wings folded close, eyes glowing weakly like twin moons losing their strength. She did not command the stars tonight. She watched her child breathe. Rank, throne, crown, all of it shrank before the trembling heartbeat of her daughter. For the first time in her reign, she questioned whether power truly protected life or merely protected pride. She had seen warriors, conquerors, prophets, but here was a simple human, no empire behind him, no army waiting outside, offering everything without asking anything in return. Her voice, when it came, held a vulnerability she never allowed before. "You speak to her as if she can hear you." Ethan didn't turn, his gaze fixed on the child. Maybe she can. Maybe souls listen even when ears cannot. Sometimes the smallest voice brings someone back from the furthest darkness. Valeria watched him, confusion and wonder swirling in her gaze. "Humans grieve like fire," she murmured, "but hope like a storm." Ethan's eyes dimmed with memory, the ache in them deeper than starless space. "Hope is painful," he replied quietly, "but giving up hurts worse." For a moment, silence stretched again, not empty but heavy with something new, a fragile connection built not on politics or species, but shared suffering. Yet fate rarely allows gentle moments to rest. Beyond the sealed chamber doors, boots echoed. Heavy, deliberate, the steps of soldiers who moved not with duty but with secret intent. Valeria's sharp hearing caught it first. Her wings lifted slightly, instinct sharp as a blade. Before she could react verbally, the doors slid open. Sirath stood framed by polished steel and shadow, armor gleaming like a predator under moonlight, flanked by elite crimson guards. Their faces were expressionless, but their hands hovered too close to weapons. Their presence was not ceremony. It was threat disguised as loyalty. Valeria's eyes narrowed, her voice cool and lethal. "You enter without request." Sirath bowed, but there was arrogance in the angle of his head. "Forgive the intrusion, my Empress. The Council demands an update. They are concerned." Ethan didn't move, but he felt the temperature drop. Not cold, but the tension of knives about to be drawn. Valeria's gaze turned to ice. "The Council will wait. My daughter breathes. That is all that matters. Sarath's jaw tightened, but he masked it quickly. "Forgive my boldness, Majesty, but one human cannot hold the fate of our empire hostage. Our enemies watch, alliances tremble. Many believe this outsider may have altered the child with unknown tech. Some whisper he intends to control our heir." Ethan finally looked up, slowly, his eyes holding nothing but tired disgust. "I didn't come for power. I came because a child shouldn't die if there's a chance to live." His voice was not a shout. It was worse. It was steady truth, sharpened like honed steel. But Sarath smiled. The kind of smile that belongs to a man who has already decided someone must die. Intentions are easily claimed, human. Proof, however. Valeria's wings unfurled, vast and luminous, each feather alive with fierce radiance. "Do you accuse me of ignorance?" she asked, voice like storm thunder rolling over mountains. Sarath bowed again, but his tone was oil on still water. "Never, my Empress. But the galaxy fears humans for reason. They break patterns, defy logic, change destinies. Such beings cannot be left unsupervised so near a throne." Ethan rose to his feet, slow and controlled, not because he feared them, but because he respected the child sleeping beside him. "I'm not here for your thrones, or your counsels, or your fear." He pointed toward the girl's small hand. "I am here for her." His voice softened, but his eyes burned. "And if protecting a sick child makes your empire tremble, then it is not me you should fear. It is your own weakness." Gasps filled the chamber. Even Valeria froze, stunned at his defiance. No one, not gods, not warriors, not rulers, had dared speak to an Andralis commander like that. Sarath's expression twisted with rage. His hand moved, half toward a weapon, half toward authority. But the Empress's voice cut through the tension, each word a decree carved into eternity. "Leave us." Sarath hesitated. For a second, defiance flickered in his eyes. But Valeria stepped forward, and the chamber shook with the force of her will. "Leave now, Commander, or challenge me openly and die." There was no argument left. He bowed stiffly and left, though not in defeat, but in promise. He would not stop. He would strike again when shadows hid him. Ethan knew that look. Men like Sarath existed on every world. Power without soul. Pride without honor. When the doors sealed once more, Ethan sat back down, the weight of looming danger heavy on his shoulders. Valeria turned to him slowly, her voice quieter than before, yet sharpened by emerging truth. "You do not kneel. You do not fear. Yet you hurt. I see it in your eyes. Why risk your life for another child when you could have stayed safe in your world?" Ethan looked at the princess, then the floor, then finally, painfully, at her. "Because someone in my world once told me, strength is not in conquering galaxies. It's in holding on to humanity when the universe tries to tear it from you." His voice cracked, only slightly. "I failed once. I won't fail again." Valeria stared at him for a long moment. Not as ruler to outsider, but soul to soul. And as her daughter's breathing steadied again, she whispered something almost unheard, something she had not said since the day her child was born. "Then perhaps, human, you were sent here not by chance, but by destiny." Outside, the Empire braced for dawn. Inside, one child fought to wake. One emperor's heart began to soften, and one human, alone, exhausted, unarmed, stood between life and death, love and loss, peace and war. And the stars, silent witnesses, waited for the moment history would remember as the night humanity became more than legend. The whisper of betrayal and a human's burdened dawn did not arrive in the Andralis Empire like a gentle sunrise. It came as a slow, burning glow beneath the crystal walls, as if the very palace veins pulsed with waking energy. But inside the healing chamber, time moved differently. Not in hours or shadows, but in heartbeats and breaths. Princess Elira's chest rose a little steadier than before, and her fingers twitched now and then like her spirit was climbing back from some cold, dark void. Ethan sat beside her still, his shoulders slumped but his posture determined. The quiet warrior of life who fought not with weapons but with stubborn devotion. He had the look of a man whose body wanted sleep but whose heart refused to allow it. Each touch he gave to the machines, each adjustment to the nanite filters, carried a silent prayer not to gods, but to hope itself. Valeria watched him with a strange unease inside her chest, something she could not name. She had seen soldiers carve victory from the impossible. She had seen prophets bend fate with words. She had seen lovers destroy kingdoms out of passion. But she had never seen a mortal so fragile dare to defy death with nothing but grief-born resolve. She moved closer to her child, seating herself by the bed, not as a ruler, but as a mother, wings folding around her like a shield of trembling love. In the quiet, she whispered to Ethan without looking at him, "When she opens her eyes, she will not know what you have done. She will not remember this battle." Ethan nodded softly, staring at the child's hand. "She doesn't need to remember my face. She just needs to live. That is enough." Those words pierced something. Deep inside Valeria, a truth so pure it threatened to unravel the walls she had built. Around her heart, since imperial duty claimed her life, yet outside the chamber walls, the Empire roared and cracked with growing tension. The council chambers trembled under political storms. War fleets hovered restless across the sky, and whispers spread through golden halls like poison vines. Some called the human a miracle. Some called him a threat. And there were those who whispered the darkest fear, that if a human could resurrect royalty, then humans were not just unpredictable. They were divine in ways that threatened every power structure in the galaxy. In a shadowed corridor, Commander Serath stood with his loyal elite, eyes burning with a silent oath. He had failed to remove the human with authority, but there were always other methods. "Tonight," he murmured coldly, "the Empire returns to its rightful order." Inside the chamber, a sudden sound shattered the calm, a sharp beep followed by a second, steady one. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes widening. Elira's eyelids trembled again, stronger this time, and her small lips parted, a faint breath leaving her chest like a newborn song. Valeria's heart nearly stopped. She leaned forward, fingers trembling. "Little star," she whispered, voice shaking like glass in the wind. "Return to me. Please." Ethan leaned close, adjusting the neural support gently. "She's close," he murmured. "Her mind is searching its way back." Every eye in the chamber fixed on the tiny movement, one small life pulling hope by its hand. But destiny was not ready to calm yet. Without warning, alarms erupted, high-pitched, shrill, like metal screaming. The energy field around the chamber flickered. Guards shouted outside, steel met steel, and the palace quaked like giants were battling in the marble corridors. Valeria rose instantly, power flashing through her wings as she switched from mother to empress in one breath. "Intruders," she whispered, and anger rolled from her like a storm rising from broken oceans. Ethan stood as well, though exhaustion clung to his bones like chains. "They're coming for me." It was not a question. It was a certainty, spoken from instinct, from experience, from countless moments when humanity had to stand while surrounded by threats bigger than itself. Valeria stepped toward the door, her voice steel-cold with promise. "They will not touch you." She meant it. At that moment, she would tear the universe apart before letting a single blade near him. But Ethan shook his head, looking at the child again. "Your daughter still needs me. I can't leave her." His voice didn't tremble. It was simple truth. "And if I run, they win. I won't let that happen." The Empress froze, not because he refused protection, but because she realized something she had never believed before. This human did not act from fear or duty. He acted from love. And love, she understood, was the most dangerous force in existence. A section of the wall exploded, debris scattering like burning snow. Ethan instinctively shielded the cradle with his body as if flesh could outrun fire or stop metal. The guards rushed in and formed a defensive ring. From the breach, Serath stepped forward, armor cracked from the blast, eyes filled with cold certainty. "For the safety of the Empire," he declared, his voice ringing with fanatic resolve, "the human must die." Valeria's wings flared, her voice a blade drawn from the heart of a god. "Touch him, and I will erase your bloodline from the stars." But Serath only smiled because he did not come to argue. He came to end a life. Ethan, breathing, steady despite the threat before him, walked one step towards Serath. Not reckless, not heroic, simply human. "You can kill me," he said softly, "but if she dies because you stopped me, history will remember you as the fool who chose pride over life." Serath's hand lifted, blade glimmering. Valeria raised her power, energy trembling like the beginning of destruction. The healers screamed, and then a sound cut through everything. Small, weak, fragile, but sharper than any command or scream. The princess cried, not loud, not strong, but real, alive. Serath's blade froze mid-air. The guards gasped. The healers collapsed in joy. Valeria's knees nearly buckled as tears burst from her eyes like dammed rivers breaking. Ethan turned slowly, and the world held its breath as tiny violet eyes blinked open for the first time since death touched them. The child lived, and in that moment the Empire changed. Forever. Yet danger still hung in the air. Serath's blade had not lowered, and Ethan's life still hung by a fragile thread. But something else now burned in the Empress's gaze. Not grief, not fear, not duty. War, and woe to anyone who threatened the human she now owed the universe to, when a child's cry shook thrones. The world did not end with explosions or shouts. It changed with one soft, trembling cry. Princess Alira's voice, fragile as a spring breeze, cut through steel and hatred like light slicing darkness. The tiny sound echoed in the chamber, bouncing off marble and crystal, filling the palace with something more powerful than war. Life returning. Valeria, Empress of the Andralis Empire, did not move at first. Her breath stopped. Every beat of her heart froze like it was afraid to disturb this miracle. Then, slowly, her body trembled and she covered her mouth with both hands, tears overflowing. Again, not of pain now, but of a joy so overwhelming it hurt. Elira's small fingers curled weakly, reaching for warmth, and without hesitation Ethan stepped back to her side, lowering himself to her height, voice shaking but steady with love. "You came back," he whispered, as though the child could understand him through the haze between life and waking. "Good. The world kept waiting for you." The princess blinked, tiny violet eyes unfocused but alive. Alive in a way defied every rule of fate and every decree of logic. The healers bowed so low their foreheads touched the floor. One began to sob openly, another whispered ancient prayers in disbelief. They had witnessed medicine beyond anything their empire had ever created. They had witnessed a human rewrite death, but not everyone bowed. Serath still stood, blade poised, pride like poison in his veins. His eyes were wide, but not with gratitude, with fear, because power had shifted. Destiny had tilted. And a single human, a mere mortal from a world of storms and struggle, had achieved what a galactic empire could not. His voice broke into a hardened snarl. "This changes nothing. We cannot. Let an outsider hold power greater than our gods, greater than our rulers." His fingers curled tighter around the blade's hilt. "If humans can do this, then they can destroy us." It was not duty speaking. It was terror wearing armor. Valeria turned, slowly, like a goddess waking from grief, wings spreading in a blaze of golden fury. She shielded her child with her body and stepped between Ethan and Serath. "He saved my universe," she whispered, but the whisper carried the weight of collapsing stars. "If you raise that weapon again, you will not fear death. You will fear me." Her voice wasn't a threat, it was prophecy. Yet Sarath's pride refused to kneel. "He is a threat," he roared. "Humans always are." His blade drew energy, humming violently, ready to strike. But Ethan didn't hide. He didn't retreat. He simply stood there, tired, bleeding from debris cuts, eyes hollow with sleepless nights, and he placed a hand gently over the cradle again. "You want to kill me?" he said quietly, not with heroism but with a kind of exhausted courage only a grieving father could wield. "Then you do it in front of the child I brought back. You show her the first face she sees in life is murder." No power in his hand, no armor, no weapon, just words, just truth, just humanity. And that terrified Sarath more than any blade ever could. Because Ethan did not conquer with force. He conquered with heart. Sarath roared in frustration and swung, not at the child, not at Valeria, but at Ethan, to erase the symbol of human defiance from existence. But the Empress was faster. Before the arc of that deadly weapon could complete its path, her wings exploded with celestial power, a storm of cosmic fire swirling around her body as she grabbed Sarath by the throat. Her eyes were molten suns, her voice chilling as winter after betrayal. "I gave you loyalty," she whispered, "and you chose treason." With a single movement, not savage but absolute, she shattered his blade and sent him crashing across the room, armor cracking, pride breaking, ambition dying in a single instant. He hit the floor in defeat, gasping, yet even now he choked out the last poison of arrogance. "He will ruin us. Humans will rise and take what we have." Ethan looked at him, not with anger, but pity. "We don't want your throne," he said softly. "We want our children to live. That is all." That truth hit harder than any punch. Even Valeria's soldiers hesitated, shaken by the simplicity of it. Empires fought for power. Humans, this one at least, fought to save the smallest, weakest life in the room. Guards dragged Sarath away, but not like a criminal, like a warning carved in flesh. And when the doors sealed again, silence returned. Heavy, holy silence. Valeria turned, kneeling beside her child, gently lifting Alira into her arms. The princess squirmed weakly, nestling into her mother's chest as if she had never been gone. For a moment, Empress Valeria, ruler of 1,000 star systems, simply cried into her daughter's hair, shaking with gratitude she could not voice. Then she did something that stunned every breathing soul. She turned to Ethan, eyes still, wet, and bowed her head, not as a ruler bowing to a subject, but as a mother honoring someone who had given her life back. "No debt in the universe matches this," she said, voice trembling. "You have my gratitude and my loyalty." Ethan shook his head, voice raw. "I didn't do it for loyalty. I did it because no parent should bury their child, ever again." Valeria stared at him, and for the first time, truly understood humanity's terrifying strength. They did not need thrones. They conquered hearts. But outside these walls, the empire trembled. Council halls buzzed with fear. Generals questioned the future. Some saw salvation, others saw threat. And beyond the stars, distant worlds and rival empires had already heard whispers. A human brought life back from the dead. Armies would march because of this. Faiths would fracture because of this. Nations would kneel or rage because of this. The universe had just changed course, and none could stop the tide now. The princess slept. The empress wept. The human exhaled a long, tired breath, and in the quiet that followed, destiny sharpened its blade for a child's first word, and the day stars bowed to a human. The palace did not roar with celebration. It did not burst into music, fireworks, or triumphant drums. Instead, it breathed, slow and trembling, like an ancient beast waking from centuries of sorrow. Light poured through the crystalline walls, warm and golden, casting halos around the Empress and the child in her arms. Princess Elira slept peacefully now, her heartbeat steady, breaths quiet but strong, a melody the universe itself had feared it would never hear again. Ethan stood a few steps away, his shoulders sagging not from defeat, but from an exhaustion deeper than dreams, the kind earned when a man has poured his soul into saving something precious, expecting nothing in return. Valeria looked at him for a long moment, silently watching the human whose hands had defied death, whose grief had become fuel, whose quiet resilience had changed an empire more powerfully than any war ever could. This man did not arrive with soldiers. He did not arrive with weapons or ships or banners of conquest. He arrived with a wounded heart that refused to surrender, and somehow that had shaken the galaxy more than any army ever had. She walked toward him slowly, every step heavy with the gravity of history. When she stood before him, her wings lowered, not in weakness but in respect. "Human Ethan Hale," she said softly, "you have done what no legend, no warrior, no god across our centuries achieved. You have restored life to my child. My empire cannot measure your deed." Yet he shook his head, weary eyes lowering. "I didn't come for empire," he murmured. "I came for a child, and for the promise I once made to one who never got her second chance." His voice cracked, barely noticeable, but it carried the sorrow of a father who buried love in soil and never healed. Valeria's gaze softened. She had commanded worlds, destroyed rebellions, conquered planets, but she had never faced the weight of such grief, such purity of purpose. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, like a queen offering comfort to a fellow soul, not a subject. "Then know this," she whispered, "in saving mine, you honored your own." Before Ethan could respond, a tiny sound stirred the air. A soft coo, barely louder than a breath. Princess Elira blinked, eyes still hazy with warmth and wonder. She looked first at her mother, tiny fingers curling into the Empress's robe, then her gaze drifted, searching, curious, until it found Ethan. She stared, not afraid, not confused, simply observing the face that had waited for her return with hope fierce enough to burn through despair. A small hand lifted toward him, shaky but determined, and a voice fragile as starlight whispered its first word. Man, the universe stopped. Time, war, memory, everything froze in that tender sound. Ethan's chest tightened, a sudden ache so powerful it almost broke him. It wasn't grand, it wasn't ceremonial. It was innocent truth, pure as first dawn on a newborn world. Tears filled his eyes, not dramatic, just real, overflowing from a place inside him still shattered yet slowly stitching itself together. Valeria felt her knees weaken again, not from grief now but from awe. Her empire, her pride, her power. Nothing compared to what she had just witnessed. A child brought back from silence, calling out to the one who refused to give up on her. Before this sacred moment could settle, the throne room doors thundered open. Council members in gleaming armor stormed inside, flanked by rows of armed commanders. Their robes shimmered with authority and fear. The High Chancellor stepped forward, voice booming, "Your Majesty, we demand clarification. A human trespassed, defied our systems, and now stands awarded by your presence. If he can revive royalty, what power does humanity hide? This act threatens every star in our dominion." Soldiers stepped into ready stance, but Valeria raised her hand, silencing the hall. Her wings slowly unfurled to their fullest span, glowing with the fury and pride of a mother and ruler reborn. "You speak of threat," she said, voice shaking the marble beneath them. "But I speak of truth." Her wings spread wider still, gold flames dancing along each feather. This human did not bring war. He did not seek power. He brought life, when all your bodies, your machines, your wisdom failed. She stepped beside Ethan, every fiber of her being a storm ready to swallow worlds. If you fear such a being, then it is not he who dominates you. It is your own weakness. She lifted Elira high, the tiny child gazing peacefully at the world she had returned to. "Let it be known. From this day, humanity is no longer myth or threat. They are allies of the throne. Anyone who raises hand or word against them raises it against me." Gasps rippled across the hall like shock waves. Counselors stiffened in disbelief, warriors froze, and whispering empires beyond stars would soon shatter in panic and wonder. For an empress who bowed to nothing, this meant not submission, but respect carved in fire. Ethan stared at her, stunned. "I don't deserve a crown's protection," he said quietly. Valeria looked at him, eyes shining. "You earned something greater. A mother's debt, a child's first word, and a universe that will never again forget what a single human heart can do." He could not answer. His voice failed him. Silence filled the room, heavy, holy, unforgettable. And as dawn light washed over them, Ethan finally allowed himself a breath, deep, tired, trembling, the breath of a man who had nothing left to prove. Princess Elira cooed again, reaching toward him like a tiny sun. Valeria whispered, voice soft as the edge of eternity, "Will you stay until she is strong?" Ethan nodded once, solemn and gentle. "I will stay as long as she needs." And in that moment, somewhere far beyond the palace walls, the galaxy shifted course. Not through conquest, not through fear, but through one quiet human and a miracle born from pain, hope, and love that refused to die. Golden light filled the hall, and for the first time in ages, an empire believed in something greater than power. It believed in humanity.